just how's direct action been, and how's your YouTube channel coming along? And I mean, I've seen you've done some interesting projects, especially with um, the police tactical units across the country, and you've had led some instructor courses as well, and some firearms training. And obviously, your podcast have been following it as well, so you've had been able to chat with some very interesting people. So yeah, like, what have you been up to for the past year or so?
Yeah, the last year has been a blur. It's been full throttle. Yeah, lots of stuff going on with direct action. I'm very grateful and fortunate to be able to provide training for military and law enforcement. A lot of the focus over the last year or so has been more so on military and law enforcement training, a lot less on general public. Their day-to-day, everyday kind of personal protection, a little bit better understanding on home security and situational awareness. So I still have that interest, but the majority of the work that I've been providing over the last year or so has been primarily through law enforcement, a lot of the tactical community, and then I would say the next most active portion of what we provide is for military. So it's been good. Yeah, the podcast and the YouTube channel is good. It's moving forward. We're developing more and more. It's just a matter of time. There's only so many hours in a day. So when I'm not on the road providing training or preparing for the next opportunity of training, myself and Josh, who's the direct action social media manager, between him and I, we create some content and try to keep viewers interested and engaged. So yeah, lots on the go for sure.
And like, have you just been roaming around Canada, or have you had the chance to like maybe step out of Canada, or like, go down the States, share your expertise and knowledge with people down south, or maybe in like some other continent like Europe or Asia? Are you like trying to stick to Canada for now?
Yeah, I'm trying to stick to Canada. And here's the interesting thing: like I've been requested in Florida, I've been requested in Michigan, I've been requested in some parts of Europe. Interest is what I should say. People are interested in me going there to provide training, either in some portions of South Africa and Mexico. I'm I'm not against it. I'm open to the idea and the suggestion, but I'm not motivated to step outside of Canada. I'm very much a patriot, and if I can provide for Canadians, I will be happy to do that. Some people have had the conversation with me, like, oh yeah, the industry that you're in is, there's it's so much more lucrative in the States. Listen, I'm not I'm not motivated by money. Yes, of course, I want to make a decent living and be able to, provide for my family. Take them on a trip a year, once or twice a year without stressing out about money for sure. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. But here's the interesting thing: there are Americans who will come to Canada who are doing very similar work to myself, and they will provide for Canadians. And there's no issue when Americans go across the border and they're making money providing contracts for Canadians. And Canadians are very, I would say, insecure and very sheepish when it comes to looking inside their own borders for very similar talent. So here's the issue that I have: Americans come to Canada and they make good money and they're providing for Canadians. When Canadian tries to go to the States to provide training, there's issues. There's issues crossing the border. There's issues with visas, work visas. There's issues with, literally, I've had conversations with ATF individuals, saying, well, why is an American hiring a Canadian to do work that Americans can do? And I say to them, you have to ask them, man. They've requested me. Why they're requesting me and not an American is probably because we have a different perspective on things. So I have a bit of an issue with how it's very one directional. It seems no issue for Americans to go to Canada and provide training, but it seems like there's a big issue for Canadians to go to the States. So I have a problem with that. So you wrap that up into a ball, and it's kind of easy to say, for me, like I'm a proud pro Canadian. I love the States, don't get me wrong, but I'm a proud pro Canadian. Where if I can just provide for Canadians, then I don't have to worry about those headaches, and I'm really not interested in dealing with those headaches. And we've got a lot of good people in Canada that are benefiting from the training. We got a lot of talented people in Canada that are doing similar work to myself, who my hats off to them. So, so to answer your question, um, will I say no, or is there a possibility that I would provide some training in the States in the future? Sure. But is it high on my priority list? Absolutely not.
Okay. Um, and like also, I had it's a question like, have you um, I know we all know that you were a part of JTF2 and the Special Operations Unit. Like, are you like still in touch with people from JTF2 and other like Special
Yep.
Operations Unit? Like, do
Yep.
you guys every so
So yeah,
often just come
yeah,
together
no,
to?
I still got a good nucleus, a good core group of friends that are still active at the unit. We stay in contact. We catch up every now and again. Meet up for a coffee or for a beer here and there. And, we just kind of, yeah, just catch up. Like those guys are friends, man. Like I've had the great opportunity to operate with some of those guys who are still active, and some of the guys who I didn't operate with. They still reach out to me. We still catch up every now and again, have a coffee, just chat. Sometimes guys reach out who are still active at the unit, and they just want to vent. They just want to get a few things off their chest. They bounce it off me because they know I understand. I've been in their shoes, and they can get that stuff off their chest without any negative consequence of potentially having that same conversation with somebody that might be still active. So yeah, to answer your question, got a lot of healthy relationships with a good group of dudes that are still active. I still stay in contact with a few guys from the UK, from Australia, from the States. Once in a while, we'll send a text message or have a phone call every now and again. So yeah, I still have contacts within the community, just not as much. And it's not for any other reason than the fact is they're busy. They got a lot going on. They have families. They have other responsibilities, just like I do. Allows, or when we create that time, we get together. And if we don't chat with each other, for 2 or 3 months, we just pick up where we left off.
Okay. And like just because you mentioned like they need someone to like vent vent on. Like I mean, I've been following many like special operators that are like coming on podcasts and YouTube channels, and uh, everyone is a little bit frustrated to a certain extent. Whether it be JTF2, whether it be even the British SAS, everyone's just a little bit frustrated about something or the other. Uh, like just to the, I'm not sure how much I can reveal, but or talk about, but have there been any common themes you've noticed which operators are just a little bit concerned about or just a little bit frustrated about that
Yeah, I would
kind
say
of speaking out about right now?
there are frustrations that are pretty common with regard to political will or lack of political will. There's a lot of things that are going on in the world that are at a percolating status. There are frictions, there are conflict, there are issues that are percolating throughout the globe, all over the place. And I think there's a lot of uncertainty with you know the way things that are unfolding from a geopolitical perspective. And then guys that are in my, like, what I used to do for a living, guys that are in that position, they see opportunity to have an effect, a cause and effect in a positive manner, but they're underutilized. So there's frustration. Um, there's also frustration with the nonsense that makes social media. It just you know, or it really cascades the amount of social media feeds with just, when I say nonsense, I mean, you know, diversity, equality, inclusion. We're all the same, you know, floating snowflake. Like, this frustrates guys because the reality is, well, that's just not reality. We're all different. You know, people have strong opinions, which they're entitled to, but you know, when people are being assassinated because of freedom of choice of voice and speaking their voice, there's a problem. There's a serious problem where right, wrong, or different, you can agree or disagree on somebody's point of view, but to take somebody's life because you disagree on somebody's point of view, there's a problem. That is unacceptable, and it's a problem. So where I bring that back is there are guys that are very trained, highly trained, and very capable to not just prevent situations like this from happening, but also to squash people that are percolating in these manners. And when they're underutilized, guys get frustrated. So like, why, you know, why am I away from home so much? You know, why am I putting so much stress on my family life when we're training and we're polishing the boots and we're, you know, we're sharpening the spear, but it's being underutilized. So there's overall frustration, I think, um, amongst the community, and that's generalized, of course. I would say the way to put a positive spin on that is looking at it and maybe providing context with a positive twist. So where I'm going with that is, we choose this life. We're not, you know, forced to do this line of work. So in choosing so, we have an obligation to do what's asked of us and to apply skills that we've been trained to do. So if the call doesn't come, we need to maintain some tactical patience and continue to train, because when the call comes, we want to be as prepared as possible. So the way that I look at it is from a positive perspective is control what we can control and try not to worry too much about the things that we cannot control. And that enables us to continue to grow, continue to train, you know, to continue to sharpen the spear and just be prepared. So when it does kick off, we're not at a deficit in terms of trying to catch up. So that's kind of the way that I would look at it. I would say a general theme of frustration is um, risk adversity, lack of political will, and over amounts of concern what other people think.
And like just back to like direct action combat as well. So yeah, it seems to be a great venture and it's progressing quite a bit. But over the last year or two, like, have there been any like significant challenges that you've had? And like, just what sort of strategies or things have you put in place just to kind of
Yep.
overcome them
Yeah,
and,
great question. There's
take this venture
consistent
forward?
strategy challenges. There's like every every decision made or every dollar spent. So like operational expenses, for an example, every expense that is, you know, projected outward to keep the business afloat, there's multiple taxes that are associated to that. So it's like, you know, are there challenges? For sure, not just financial, but, you know, with, you know, policy changes, firearm regulation changes, what some services can and cannot do, what military procurement systems are in place. There are challenges everywhere you look, every direction there's a new challenge. It gets frustrating at times and I get deflated at times, but what keeps me going and what strategies I put in place to persevere through those challenges, every time I get an opportunity to provide training for military or law enforcement, I know to the core of my being that two things. One, I'm doing what I am meant and purposely supposed to do, and what I'm put on this earth to do. I believe that to the core of my being. So that motivates me. The other thing is, the folks that are on the receiving end are the ones that are actually doing the job. So if I can give them, you know, an element of advice or guidance or a technical or a tactical application to give them that 1% improvement, then that gives me purpose and it fills my cup. And I know that I'm doing something that has a purposeful meaning. So are there challenges? 100%, man. There are challenges every single day, from the amount of taxes that we pay, how we acquire firearms so I can do my job, what restrictions are in place so I can move from point A to point B to do my job. Um, all the procurement processes at a federal government level. So there's a Buy Canada site that is very convoluted. It is not straightforward when it comes time to bid on contracts or to try to put the business out there and let folks know, here, this is what direct action can provide. These are the dollar figures that are associated per day training. Here's what I want to do for this organization. And then there's layers of you know, checks and balances, which in one regard, I respect and I understand why they do it, but they make it so complicated and so difficult that for guys like me, unless you have 8 hours a day to spend behind a computer and to navigate all of the white noise nonsense that is put out there in policy, I don't have that time. And people say, well, just hire somebody. Okay, I could hire somebody. Well, then that cuts into the bottom line. So are there challenges? Yes, 100%. So the way that I kind of circumvent the challenges, or at least hit them head on, which is my probably a more adequate or appropriate approach, is no problem. Whatever challenges you keep putting in front of me, whatever obstacles, I will smash through them. I will find a way to blast through them, climb over them, walk around them, dig a hole and go under it, whatever I have to do. Because there's no stopping what direct action is doing. In the next 5 years, direct action, my goal is to put direct action in every province of this country. There will be DNA in some capacity from coast to coast of Canada. So you can put as many obstacles as you want in front of me. I will find a way to circumvent it, because I know at the end of the day, the people that are receiving the training are going to benefit from it. And every time that I get a chance to provide training, either in the CQB or in a firearms setting or in a defensive tactics setting, it fills my cup, because I absolutely love delivering the training. And I know what I was put on this earth to do is what I'm doing right now. So that's kind of a maybe a long-winded way to say, yeah, there's lots of obstacles, and you know, the government and the policymakers and the white shirts that are responsible for approving or declining a contract. Every time there's a decline or a missed opportunity, I look at it like a new challenge. I'm going to dig in. I'm going to dig in a little bit, and I'll figure out a way to make it happen.
And like I was going through your YouTube channel a while ago. I think if I'm correct, you also I mean the guy had a mask on, but you had an SAS operator as well, I believe, just on the channel. And he was I think demonstrating live firearms instruction or something. Uh, like you just out of curiosity, like what is it like to? I mean, even with direct action combat in JTF2. Like, what was it like to work with the SAS? Like, it just, I mean, that's just one of the unit which kind of fascinates me because, like, they are, like, one of the most celebrated units, but at the same time, they're, like, the public knows nothing about them, I think, almost. So, like, just
Sure.
just based on whatever
Well,
you've seen,
first,
what was it
I'm
like
not
just to work with
sure
them? Like,
what YouTube episode you're speaking of, because I don't think, I'm certain actually we haven't had an SAS guy on the show yet, um, but we will in the future. My experience with the 22 SAS is it's been good. Like, the guys are professional. They got a ton of experience. There's a very long lineage of history, and I would say, like, there are things about SAS that are well known, and there are things about SAS that people just don't know, and it's by choice. They do that on purpose. They're very good at what they do. They have a long history, a very in-depth, colorful history. My experience with them has been just positive. I think there are certain maybe tactics or procedures that they do that are different. It doesn't make them right or wrong. It's just the way that they approach things based on their experiences and based on the operational environment, just like any organization. Um, what I find, or what I found interesting about working with the 22 SAS is they, I would say, not rest on their laurels. Like they know they have a colorful history, and they have, some traditions that they kind of stick to. I find that interesting because, what has transpired years and years ago in the 80s is very different than the early 2000s, which is very different than today's modern warfare. So adaptation and, you know, approaching modern day war fighting is very different today than it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. What I found in my exposure to the 22 SAS is they use a lot of experiences and story from years ago, and they try to apply it to today's world, which I don't think that's necessarily the most adequate approach. I think there's experiences from the past for sure that we would draw upon, and based on those experiences, we have something to leverage from a point of stress and duress. It's like, hey, we know that this tactic or this thing worked back then, but I think the mature approach or the modern approach would be, how can we adapt that or modify that to apply it to today's world? So um, I don't know if that answers the question or not, but I would say they maybe rest a little bit too heavily on their history, and I would say the same thing about JTF2 too. Like, JTF2 has done a lot of really good things over the last, you know 2 decades, for example. But the world has changed. Modern day battlefield has changed, so it is important that we too adapt and change and pivot to the realities of what we're facing today.
So, um, just my final question for you just today is like, based on the current landscape we have, would you still encourage someone to become a special operator today? And more so, like, also, what kind of advice would you just want to give someone who would maybe want to start like um, a private venture like direct action
Great
combat,
question. I would say
since
first
you've
part of
been
your
running
question,
it for such a
yes,
long
I would
time?
encourage anyone that is interested in special operations to do it. Um, the reality is, we don't know, we don't have a crystal ball, and we don't know what's coming around the corner. And when conflict happens, which it will, history repeats itself, it will happen. The special operations are going to be leaned on. They're going to be leaned on very heavily from the federal government perspective to create solutions to these problems. So I would say putting ourselves ahead of the curve and being in a position to respond so we can create solutions to legitimate serious problems that the government will have no answer for. I think being a special operations soldier is the most optimal place to be. So when the situation presents itself and when the call comes, you're already there, rather than trying to play catch up and get into the fight once the fight is already spooled up. So yes, I would encourage 100% anybody who's motivated, intelligent, proactive, and really want to work with a solid group of professionals who rely on each other and depend on each other to do a really good job, then yes, I would say get after it. Do it now, because all of us, we only get one lap at this thing we call life. We're all going to wake up one day, 75 years old, and forgetting where we put our keys. And we're going to look back and say, oh, I could have, would have, should have. Well, do it. Do it now. And, there's no negative effect to putting yourself out there, working extremely hard, and become a special operations assaulter, soldier, operator. So I would say, yes, do that. Your second part of the question, running a business is very different than running a gun in a special operations team environment. With the business, I have a group of a very small group, but a tight knit group of assistant instructors that help me out. I have a great social media manager who helps me out. I am very, very fortunate to have good people in my circle that understand the values and the ethics and the morals of what I'm trying to do with direct action, and they are on board and they're in support too. So it is it's a challenging thing to run a business, but it's a rewarding thing because when you surround yourself with good people and we share very similar intents and motivations for the end goal and the end state, then we're doing the right thing. So for anybody that might be interested in venturing out to do their own thing, I would say do it, man. Like, and you know, it's just it's an opportunity to really explore a what you're capable of, but b there is there's money to be made doing stuff that you absolutely love to do, and I don't think we should feel guilty for making money doing stuff that we love to do. So is it challenging? Yes, for sure. Is it rewarding? 100%. The caveat I would say to that is sometimes people will advertise themselves as something more than they were. So there's guys that came from, you know, different backgrounds that will give the allure or the illusion that they did more than what they did. I would say don't do that, because your credibility is going to get shot. Your exposure will come to the surface, and there is no shade or shadow that one can hide. So I'd say you're going to start a business, just be honest, stay within the wheelhouse of what you know and what you're good at and what you can teach. Because when you're teaching and providing instruction, be prepared for pushback, be prepared for questions. And if you're unable to answer those challenging questions, then you probably shouldn't be teaching the material. And I say that with conviction because I know there's people out there that are doing similar work to myself that probably shouldn't be doing it, or they give an illusion that they came from a different background or they did a lot more than what they actually did. So I would say be careful with that because there are lives and there is personal security that is at stake. So if somebody suggests that they can provide training and they give an element of training that's absolutely bullshit, somebody could get killed or seriously hurt, and that's not okay with me. Um, that being said, I don't control what people do, so I would just caution people. If you're going to start a business, no problem. Just keep it within the realm of what you actually can do and what you're good at. Um, but if it's something that you're embellishing, or maybe over cinematic approach to what you actually can do, I'd say be cautious with that because serious lives and people's personal protection are at risk.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Randy, for taking the time to talk to me. You're in your car, running in between work and meetings, but you still took out the time. So yeah, thank you so much. And just like last time, I'll spend some time editing
My
this,
pleasure,
and then
man.
it'll
All
be
the
out on
best
the
to you.
channel
Best
soon.
of luck
So
with everything that you're
thanks for
doing,
taking the time to
and
talk to me.
keep me apprised as you get a little bit closer to all your licensing
Yeah,
and flight time.
yeah.
All right, take care.